Today, Kurt Burns finds himself born into the chaos of the zombie apocalypse, filled with hordes of zombies, lack of resources, and the brutal weather. However, Kurt did manage to make some friends along the way. I thought it would be a fun challenge to make Project Zomboid even more challenging with the goal of rebuilding society from scratch. I decided to build a base in Rosewood gas station due to the access to the freeway and gas being pumped directly to the base. My character traits are high thirst, restless sleeper, slow healer, hearty appetite, smoker, weak stomach, and Sunday driver. Sunday driver and hearty appetite was a big mistake that I would feel the consequences of later. This journey was full of ups and downs and overall a great experience. I would highly recommend Project Zomboid to anyone looking for a challenge. Now let's get started on this roller coaster of a video. On day one, I spawned in a house not knowing what was outside or inside. I immediately began looking for supplies and a weapon to fend myself off from zombies, but with very rare loot on, it was going to be a challenge to find the most basic needs. After finding a few books, I went next door to the garage to see if I could find a weapon. But with no luck, I went to go loot the house next to the garage, and I did manage to find a source of food and a good water bottle from an old bleach container. I continued upstairs and found a box of ammo, a huge surprise, but I didn't have a weapon or the space to bring it with me. But I did leave a mental note for it later. As I was leaving the house, I found my first zombie. I went straight to it to try and remember the controls on how to fight it back. Luckily, it was the only one, so I was able to take it down with ease. I then found 2 more zombies and decided to take them out to hopefully not attract any other nearby zombies around. I then began looting the next house to find a zombie inside. After quickly dealing with it, I was able to go find some basic supplies and food. I decided to eat some cold stew I found and loot the nearby garage. After finding no weapons, I decided to make my way towards the fire station to hopefully get lucky with an axe and maybe some protection against zombie scratches and bites. I managed to make it into the fire station without dealing with many zombies and began looting everything I could find, just hoping to find some weapons, otherwise I would not survive very long. After looting the garage, I was able to get extremely lucky and find an axe, just what I needed to defend myself. Then, after finding the axe, I headed towards the taxi at the front of the station to hopefully find a working vehicle. However, I had no gas and zombies began to head towards my direction, and so I ended up taking them out and storing some of my items in the taxi so I could head towards the police station. At the police station, I'm hoping to find a gun and maybe some better clothes to fend off zombies with. Luckily, out front, there wasn't many zombies, and right before I was about to head in, a zombie with full SWAT gear approached me, so I needed to get a hold of those clothes. They would end up saving me numerous times through this journey. Now that I had an axe and some better clothes, I was feeling more confident when entering the station. I killed a zombie who had the key to the armory in the back, which was huge. I then began looting the office spaces and managed to find a carton of cigarettes and a lighter, just what I needed for my smoker trait. I went straight back to the armory and found a grenade and a weapon. And then decided it was getting late and started to head back to the original house I was by. As I was approaching a house to stay in for the night, I noticed there was another survivor in the house. I began chatting with Lynn and decided it was a good idea to team up and hopefully one day rebuild society. Now that it was getting late, I went upstairs to the bedroom to find a fanny pack. On day 2, I went down to the garage next to the house I stayed in. While I was looting, a zombie approached the window with a great backpack. Just what I needed. Then I figured now that I have an axe, it would be a good idea to start clearing out the nearby zombies to make it easier to loot the houses. During this slaughter, some zombies set off an alarm alerting every zombie in the nearby block. Then I nearly died to a zombie sneaking up on me. This will be far from the last time. While looting a house I was going to stay in for the night, I found an assload of weapons under the kitchen sink. I then decided to end the day by organizing my inventory and getting ready for the following day. Day 3 had a foggy morning and zombies were near a possible working vehicle, which was one of the things I needed to find as quickly as I could. The car did have a key in the glove box, however no gas, so I had to move on and keep searching. I also needed to find more food if I was going to survive for a long period of time, so that was also on the objective for the day. As I was looting houses, I managed to find some basic supplies like books, more weapons, magazines, and more zombies. But no food or cars anywhere to be found. Then trying to break into the next house, I ended up setting off another house alarm alerting every zombie nearby. These alarms are going to curse me all through this series. Then I decided to run away a bit and begin killing some of the zombies approaching me to clear out the area again so I could keep looking for a vehicle and food. 2 things I would need to find if I was going to survive 100 days in this series. Now that it was clear again to keep looting, I managed to find a generator in some random garage, a huge find except I didn't have a way to transport it or read the magazine to use it. So I just marked it on my map and began mapping other major locations I've visited so far. In the next house, I finally managed to find some food, but I was so hungry already, I had to eat it all right away, just buying me a little bit more time. I am worried I'm going to start losing weight soon, which will lead to long-term consequences if I don't get enough calories each day. As I was running around the Rosewood neighborhood, I managed to come across a fire truck. After killing the zombies around it, I checked the truck. With the battery in good condition, a little gas in the tank, and the key in the ignition, I had a working vehicle finally. However, looking back on the footage, I completely missed that there was a sledgehammer right next to the truck. A huge blunder to not see that. Now that I had a working vehicle, I wanted to scout out my future base for the series, which is the Rosewood gas station. I picked this place due to the access to the freeway and gas being right outside the base. That will come in very handy later. As I was getting closer to the gas station, I noticed more and more groups of zombies, making this idea of a quick drive to my base seem impossible. When I did make it to the gas station, there was too many zombies to handle right now, so I drove off to see if I could clear some of them out. However, in the moment looking back, this was a terrible idea because when we stopped and got out, I decided to abort and Lynn ran off forcing me to leave her behind. I was not sure if she was going to survive or not, but I left my first survivor to die. We are not off to a great start with rebuilding society from scratch. I decided then to drive back to a safe location to spend the night, and for the remainder of the night, I was left thinking about what happened today and decided it was important to keep moving forward. Day 4 was a day of reflecting on my actions from the previous day. I spent the whole day sorting through my inventory, looting the house, and reading books. But one thing I kept thinking about, though, was if Lynn was still alive out there. I spent the whole day thinking of a plan to search for Lynn and hope she is still alive. The following day I needed to do something and go search for Lynn. Day 5, we finally had a plan to get Lynn back, but first I needed to start clearing out zombies towards downtown to make sure I don't form a horde of zombies. As I was making my way towards the center of town, I managed to find the sledgehammer from yesterday and realized how heavy it was to carry. I figured I would mark it on the map and grab it later since it was too heavy to carry now. I was slowly getting closer to the center of town and noticed more groups of zombies, so I needed to take them out slowly and make sure not to attract any more that I couldn't handle. As I was whispering towards the zombies, Lynn must have heard me killing them and managed to make her way back to me. I was so happy that she didn't die and managed to stay alive all night. Now that Lynn was back, I was feeling more confident dealing with the zombies, so it was time to get some payback. Now that we finally made it to the center of town, we noticed a huge horde of zombies near the medical station. I was feeling a little too confident and decided to challenge the horde, until this happened to Lynn. I once again put Lynn in danger and she ended up tripping and the horde surrounded her. I was enraged and needed to get revenge. I also couldn't let Lynn remain as a zombie, so I needed to put her to rest for good. I managed to kill all the zombies and Lynn was the last one. She was crawling towards me like the zombie from The Walking Dead in the first episode. I decided to bash my machete through the back of her head and took anything that would be useful for my journey. After saying my goodbyes to Lynn, I went to the clinic to find some medical supplies now that most of the zombies have been cleared out. I found some sweet painkillers, bandages, beta blockers, alcohol wipes, and many more. Lynn's death was not for nothing. It allowed me to find enough medical supplies to get by for weeks. As I was headed back to find a house to stay in for the night, I met Frank on the road. It looked like he had been surviving for a while and decided to invite him to my group since more numbers was a higher chance of survival. When finding a house to stay in for the night, Frank and I managed to find another generator and making a note to come back for it later. For the rest of the evening, Frank and I sat in a bedroom and talked for the night, getting to know each other. We also went over all of our supplies and made a plan for the next day. On day 6, I was tweaking my game settings and forgot to hit record. It's my first time doing this, but I figured it was bound to happen at least once.
Loser! You're a loser! Are you feeling sorry for yourself?
On day 6, I managed to make it to the Rosewood bar looking for bourbon. However, I didn't find anything good at the bar. I did manage to find another sledgehammer and pick that up. Then I also stashed some weapons to pick that up at a later date. So nothing too eventful happened on day 6. Waking up in the bar had me tense since I know a lot of the other survivors like to come here, and some can be dangerous. After getting ready for the day, we approached some zombies near the bar, and that gave me an idea to start slowly clearing out zombies towards the gas station, and also scout out a new vehicle since the truck got ruined the previous day. Frank and I eventually made it to the motel and began clearing out the zombies. They did not stop coming, so we did what we do best. Once the zombies were wiped out, we began looting the motel for any basic supplies and possible food. I noticed there was a parking lot on the other side of the road, so I went over there to clear out the zombies. I had hoped for the best that there was a working vehicle I could use. I checked every car, but none of them have worked. But I did get lucky and found an empty gas can, which could help me siphon gas and maybe get a vehicle that way. I then noticed a horde of zombies north of us and needed to clear that out, so Frank and I started picking them out one by one. Then Frank and I headed over to the mechanic shop to clear out the zombies on the side of the road and see if there was any good loot. And this was where I had another close call. I had 2 freaking zombies bite me, but luckily due to my SWAT armor, they weren't able to reach my skin. After that close call, I decided not to push my luck and just loot the mechanic shop and head back to the hotel to sleep for the night. Through the night, I was excited with the progress we made today. We were getting very close to the gas station and may be able to clear it out the next day. So Frank and I spent the rest of the night taking it easy and getting ready for a stressful day tomorrow. Day 8 was an important day because this was the day I'm going to clear out the zombies and claim my base for the next 100 days. This location is where I will rebuild from scratch and have a hub to store useful items and begin a farm. It did take all morning to clear out all the zombies and they were clustered up, so I had to go a bit slower, but we did manage to clear the area and immediately began unloading everything and starting to plan out what the base was going to look like. One thing I did know, I had a lot of weeds to clean up to make this place feel like home for the next 92 days. So I did just that. I spent the whole day unloading and organizing the base to start getting some of the work done to make this place homely and cozy for people to live at and hopefully expand in. The next day was a mission to get food. Frank and I were running low. We needed to find some more to get by until we could start a farm. Luckily, in Rosewood, there's a grocery store close by that I could check out. But before going out, I decided to clear out all the weeds in the main room of the gas station. In a way, it was kind of relaxing pulling the weeds and starting to get things cleaned up around the base. Once the weeds were done, I then got my belongings and got ready for a trip down to the grocery store. Due to us clearing out a lot of zombies a couple days prior, there wasn't many to deal with and we were able to make it pretty easy. Once Frank and I knew it was clear, we began taking everything we could find. There was enough food to last us a few days, maybe even a week. Once we had more than we could carry, Frank and I headed downtown to loot the bookstore. We were looking for one magazine, a crucial one if I was going to survive for the full 100 days. The famous generator magazine, allowing me to connect and use generators. This will be key to getting power back on at the base and get the gas pumps working for enough gas to last me the whole series. However, as I was looting the bookstore, I didn't find the magazine. I did manage to find any other book I may need through the series. As I was leaving the store in defeat, I decided to loot the offices next door since it seemed clear. And it was my lucky day. I managed to find the generator magazine in some random office. After a successful day, it was starting to get late, so I went back to the base and just spent the rest of the night decorating the kitchen area. Now that we made it to day 10, I spent the day organizing the kitchen and the base and just general organization around. However, I forgot to hit record during the evening, but I left to go to a farmhouse close by to look for more food and basic supplies. I managed to make it, and I found more food, but due to it getting late, I ended up staying the night at the barn house. But overall, not much happened today. I figured now it was a good time to head back to the base and unload all the loot I got from this place. It wasn't that far, so it was pretty easy to walk back. Once I was back at the base, I began hanging up sheets over the windows to keep zombies from seeing us inside, and threw up a wood barricade to help keep the zombies out. I'll need a lot more wood and sheets though before I can do the whole ground floor. Then upstairs, I started to fill the space with storage and decorations, and the gas station started to slowly feel like home. I started to break down some of the aisles on the ground floor for wood planks and to open up the space for future furniture and storage units. Then just finished the rest of the day picking weeds in my storage closet and just around the base. Today was great, got to make the base feel more like home and had 2 survivors approach the base. I figured they could stay with us for the night since they were just passing through Rosewood. I spent the rest of the night just thinking about how far we've come since day 1. We have more survivors than ever before, and we're starting to build home and things are starting to slowly come together. On day 12, I went downtown to look for vehicles and managed to find this Jeep. It had some damage in the engine, but overall it did work, so I decided to take it with me. I then went back to the neighborhoods to look for the generator I marked on my map previously, and that would come in handy to power the gas pumps. And of course, I found a garden gnome too, and it wouldn't be a Project Zomboid survival series without grabbing at least one garden gnome. I then went to the Rosewood bar to gather the weapons I stashed early on and began to break down the tables and chairs to get wood and start leveling up my carpentry for future base building. When I finally made it back to the base, I decided to spend the rest of the day decorating some more and just organizing the inventory from today's loot run. Day 13 was just spent getting things done around the base. I put some fuel in the vehicles now that we have a working generator at the pumps. I also just spent the day decorating the base some more and just general organization, nothing too exciting on this day. The next day I found myself wandering over to the rich neighborhood and trying to find some good loot from those houses. I did manage to clear out a couple zombies and find my way into the first home. There was a few zombies, but nothing I couldn't handle. I also brought a couple survivors with me just in case we get in a bind, and having more numbers could help in a scenario like that. Once I started looting the house, I managed to find some food and basic supplies, but then I started to find cabinets full of weapons. A huge find, since a crowbar will allow me to pry things open, and I found 2 more fire axes, which are my favorite weapons in the game. After managing to loot 2 of the rich homes, I noticed it was starting to get late, so I went back to the base to unload all these new weapons and food. Then I just spent the rest of the night reading books for the XP boosts and planning out what I'm going to do in the following week. On day 15, I was starting to get worried from the lack of nails I had and decided to find a warehouse that may have some. After scouting the map out a bit, I found a location. It was here on the map. It was no short drive. It was going to take me all morning to get there, but I knew I needed to risk it to try and get nails and begin fortifying the base. Once I was on the road, I realized that when I was picking perks, I remember I picked Sunday Driver, one of the worst perks in the game. It makes it where you drive very slow and you have less power, so it makes it very sketchy when a lot of zombies are around. I also drive very slow, so this already long trip took even longer. Never ever pick this trait ever. Once we made it to the warehouse, I immediately got out of the Jeep and began killing zombies to try and clear them out a bit. I'd finally cleared out a ton of zombies just to realize there was another group almost just as big as the first one I just killed. I was also starting to get tired too, so I wouldn't be as effective with my axe. I decided to risk it and try to clear out the horde, and it was going well until this happened. Once again, nearly ending this entire run, somehow managed to escape and just scrape by with a scratch. My heart was beating just as fast as Kurt's in this moment. Barely getting away, we had to retreat back to the Jeep and figure out a game plan on what to do. After a couple hours, we noticed it was getting late, and so we got the hell out of there and drove back to the base in the dark. A risk probably not worth taking, but we managed to make it back to the base all alive. The following day, I ended up finding a trailer at the mechanic shop that I could attach to the Jeep for extra storage during looting runs. I then decided to head down to the police station to get some better clothing and steal the water jug inside. However, when arriving, there was a lot more zombies than expected, and of course, getting cocky once again, I tried to fight off the horde to only get separated from Frank and Gregor. I ended up having to kite around a fence, and by the time I came around to the Jeep, Frank and Gregor were gone, once again losing 2 more survivors. Driving back, I was thinking about all the people I've killed so far in this journey. I'll need to be a lot more careful going forward if I'm going to keep other survivors and myself alive. I spent the rest of the night just reading and thinking about what happened today. When day 17 arrived, I wanted to go do some more looting, so I went down to the rich neighborhood. And right when I pulled up, I spotted another survivor running. I decided it was a good idea to try and team up since there could be a lot of zombies in the area still. Allison agreed and we were off to start looting the area. In the first house, there was a ton of zombies, but it was a good way to see if Allison had good fighting skills. With her axe, she was able to fight off most of the zombie hordes no problem. But through the day, everything went smoothly, so we were able to find a lot of new weapons and some decorations for around the base. Once we made it back to the base, it was already late, so I unloaded everything and placed some decorations around the base. When I awoke on day 18, I was starting to wonder why the hell I haven't found any boxes of nails yet, so I figured it was time to take a risk and make my way down to another town called Muldraugh. After a long drive, we finally made it to Muldraugh, and this town had some abandoned warehouses that may have a box of nails. But first I ended up stopping at the bar to have a safe area since I haven't cleared this town at all. I noticed I was getting tired early in the day and it was forcing me to waste a lot of daylight. Apparently in Project Zomboid, when you lose enough weight, your character will be tired more often. So I ended up having to take a fat nap in the military cots at the bar. Now that I had very little daylight, I had to move fast, but I did meet another survivor named Wayne. I thought he had a cool name, so I invited him to join my group. Now that we had backup and we were losing daylight quickly, I got to the warehouse and finally cleared them out. Wayne and I spent the whole night looting just to find a box of screws. Not what I came here for. I did manage to find some crowbars, which came in handy, but overall was not worth the risk I took today. And due to the circumstances, we did end up sleeping in the van for the rest of the night. Day 19 was just driving back and unloading the loot that I got from the day before. Nothing too crazy happened on this day. On day 20, I forgot to record, but pretty much on that day, I did start to lay the foundation of a new farm, and I also barricaded all the windows in the base, so now it's a little bit more secure. So nothing too crazy. First thing in the morning, I went to go check on the farm since it was raining. I wanted to see how the farming mechanics worked in this game. Looks like they were well watered, but that's about it. I did add some fertilizer to the crops that I found in Muldraugh. For the rest of the day, I spent scavenging around the middle class neighborhoods and began to clear out more of the zombies in the area. My goal is to find more food for a bigger trip that I've been planning, but in the meantime, I need to find short-term food until my crops can fully grow. On day 22, I went to go start the big scavenging trip. I decided to leave town in a direction I haven't been yet, and it had led me to a gas station full of zombies. I wanted the food inside, so I decided to kill all the zombies in the area. Definitely wasn't worth it since I only got one water bottle and an orange soda. Now that I was back on the road driving for a while, I noticed it was getting dark, so I scouted the map and found a farmhouse nearby that I could stay at for the night. When I arrived, there was a few zombies around, but nothing I couldn't handle. The old owners even left me an old pot of rotten soup. Day 23, we continued the drive. It was long and boring, but after a while, we finally made it to the town I've been trying to reach. And I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea what the name of this town is, just that it's southwest of Rosewood. The first thing I noticed was how many damn zombies there were. Anywhere I went, there was more zombies. I eventually started driving through the neighborhoods and made my way to the edge of town where there wasn't too many of them. I did want to clear out the area before looting too much, so after a few hours of bashing some skulls, I was able to loot, and oh boy did I find a lot of good loot. I needed to find as much food as possible. As I was unloading everything into the van, I had an idea of breaking down all the furniture in all these homes to upgrade my carpentry level, and get more nails to eventually start expanding the base. So that's exactly what I did for the rest of the night, and did manage to level up my carpentry. A pretty productive day in my book. The next day, I spent all morning clearing out zombies that were hiding in all the homes, but shortly after, I ran into another survivor who was going balls to the wall and shooting everything. I was worried he was going to track some of the hordes I drove by the other day, so I just camped out in one of the rooms for the rest of the day. On 25, I wanted to make an attempt at the gas station to try and get even more food. I began pulling up at a distance to start clearing out the zombies slowly. However, as I got closer and closer to the station, more and more zombies approached me, where I just had to make a break for it because it was just too overwhelming. I was able to finally make my way into the gas station, but didn't have enough time to loot anything as I immediately heard zombies approaching the station in all directions, so I had to leave. When I got close to the van, there were too many zombies, so I had to group them all up and try and lead them somewhere else so I can escape. Luckily, it worked out and I made it back to the van, and for the rest of the day, I found a house to stay in and just read books for the rest of the day. Day 26, I spent the morning looting houses and found some more food and weapons, just the things we needed. Shortly after, I figured it'd be a good idea to head back to the base and check on my crops and unload everything from this trip. Nothing too crazy this day. On day 27, I just spent the whole day unloading supplies and organizing things around the base. The next day, I just gathered some wood and started building the foundations for some walls around the base, and I also spent the whole day clearing weeds on the backyard area. It's kind of mesmerizing. You should try it sometime. 29 was also spent just building more foundations for the Great Wall around the gas station. This takes forever to do. Then I figured out how to stitch up clothes, so then I began repairing all my clothes and patching them up with denim and leather strips. After that, I just spent the rest of the evening reading books. I did also level up my carpentry today to level 3. On day 30, I spent the morning preparing for a big trip I wanted to go on soon. I needed to get nails, food, and more general supplies that I may need down the road. But shortly after, I met another survivor named Wendy. She wandered over to the base. I asked her to join us as my goal was to rebuild society and we need more people to do that. I also met Paula, who approached the base, and I also invited her to join the group as well. The following day, as I was getting ready to leave for my big trip, I noticed there was a bandit outside. I decided to chase after him just to have my ass beat by a dude holding a saucepan. When he started running away, I had to chase after him. I'm not letting some dude who whooped my ass with a saucepan get away. But after chasing him for a while, I managed to finally get him. It felt good to get my revenge, but he did give me a laceration, so I'll have to postpone the trip and spend the rest of the day doing things around the base. On day 32, I went downtown in Rosewood to clear out the zombies and find some loot. I met a survivor named Sean, and the three of us cleared out the Rosewood downtown area, and I got the two some new clothes. But shortly after, I went back to base and just organized some more things. Day 33, I started to drive to another town to find some major supplies we needed if we were going to survive the full 100 days. It was a long journey, but I managed to find a cluster of homes along the way, and I thought it would be a good place to stay for the night. I ended up spending the evening looting all the homes and just preparing for a crazy next day. In the morning, I found some military barracks, so I went to go investigate. There was some good loot, especially military clothes for some of the other survivors. I also managed to find some magazines, which will come in very handy later. But now that I was back on the road, I was starting to get close to the outskirts of town, and more zombies kept approaching. I figured I would just drive through town and ended up clearing out some zombies in the nearby area so I could rest in the van. However, later in the night, a zombie almost killed us while we were asleep, so we went to a different spot to sleep for the night. Once morning arrived, Sean and I quickly underestimated the scope of this situation and decided to go in headfirst, slaughtering every zombie we seen. But only after a few zombies, Sean was overran and got torn apart. I tried to kill as many as I could, but there was too many zombies, and I had to group them up and book it to a nearby gas station. As I was approaching, I thought it was mostly clear until a small group came out of nowhere. Now, normally a group of this size wouldn't be a problem, but this time I was starting to get tired, so my strikes were slower and weaker. But after a while, I did manage to kill them all and hide out in the gas station to form a plan. In the end, I did decide to go back to Sean's body and loot everything that may come in handy since, well, he won't be needing it anymore. But now that it was starting to get dark, I decided to go back to the van and I found another clear spot to sleep at for the night. Day 36, after everything that had happened, I decided to go on a firing rampage, just shooting all the zombies I could see near me. This was also handy because my shot was total ass, and this would help me level up my reload and aim skill. But after spending the whole day clearing out zombies, someone must have heard me because I met a survivor named Heather. I asked her to join me since I recently lost the partner I brought on this trip, but it was getting late, so Heather and I went to a nearby house to stay for the night. The next day, Heather and I made our way outside the tool store, hoping to find some box of nails and other essential building items for later. However, out front was a horde of zombies, so Heather and I had to clear them out first. Eventually, we found our way inside and began looting everything we could find. And right when I entered the back room, I was able to find a box of nails. Just what I needed to keep building the walls around the base. Once we left the tool store, another horde of zombies approached us, and this horde made me bring my gun out again, but before too long it was too late and zombies got to Heather. Another survivor of my party had died on this trip. At this point, I just spent the rest of the day clearing out all the zombies in the area, so when I came back here later, it would be easier to loot the downtown shops. But once I did clear out all the zombies, I found Heather's body and took everything that would be useful for other survivors back at the base. But before I knew it, the sun was already starting to set, so I found a nearby home to stay in for the night. Day 38, I decided to just drive back to base, and that took most of the day, so by the time I got back, I just unloaded everything and took care of things around the base. Day 39, I just spent the whole day farming and reading books. Nothing too exciting on this day, but it was pretty cool to see the farm expand even further. This will be crucial for long term. Well, on day 40, I did it once again. I forgot to hit record like a dumbass, but overall you didn't miss much. I just finished planting seeds in the farm and expanding the walls around the base and did some more reading in my books. On day 41, I went downtown and found another water jug, which is my main water source for right now. Then I also cleared out some more zombies in town and found a random house to stay in for the night. Okay, so on day 42, I went driving around to look for more vehicles and I found this one here. I checked the engine and everything seemed great, it just needed some gas. So I did just that and gave it some gas and drove my new ride back to base. Later that night, another survivor named Morag showed up at our base and we needed more people, so I invited her to the group. Then shortly after showing her around, I went to bed for the night. On day 32, I went downtown to complete 2 objectives. 1, get more nails to keep building the walls around the base. 2, level up my carpentry so I could build more things for the base, such as rain collectors and eventually lights for the backyard area. So to complete these objectives, I essentially had to break down every piece of furniture I could find. Breaking down furniture gives you XP towards carpentry and also has a chance to drop nails and planks. For the entire day, I broke down everything I could find and I got a total of 18 nails on the first day. This is gonna take a while. When day 44 arrived, I drove back to the base and met 2 more survivors who were nearby and had good gear already. Both of them ended up joining the group, which would slowly start melting my PC with the amount of survivors there were. But then I was finally able to build my first rain collector, which is essential for long term once my water jugs run out. And today was my lucky day because finally some crops were able to harvest, ending my constant battle to look for food and feed the rest of the group. In that first night alone, I managed to get 80 pieces of corn, and right away I put it in the freezer to ensure none of it went bad. Day 45, I spent the morning harvesting the rest of the crops and got a bunch of onions, beetroots, and even more corn. We were thriving now in the food department. So later that day, I also managed to get some real walls down around the base, but after that, I just did some cooking and did some basic inventory around the base. On day 46, I went back into town and broke down some more furniture for nails, and I ended up spending the whole day doing that. But when I did get back to base, I did make some more rain collectors, which my philosophy is you can never have enough of them. Day 47, I just went to nearby buildings looking for things to decorate the base with. I found some more freezers in the grocery store and got myself another water jug, which carries a ton of water. All of day 48, I spent breaking down furniture at the nearby motel to get some more nails. I really underestimated the scope of this project when building a giant wall around the gas station. On day 49, 2 survivors of the group decided to leave, which I was fine with since that meant better PC performance when I'm at home base. But for the whole day, I just put up walls around the base. I never thought I would make it 50 days in this brutal game, but here we are. On day 50, I went back into town to get more nails, but I spotted a bandit in the center of town. I just felt the urge I needed to kill him, so I ended up chasing him around for like 10 minutes before I was finally able to kill him. After looting him and nearby zombies, I just spent the rest of the day breaking down furniture to level up my carpentry and get more nails for the wall. Day 51, I spent the whole day breaking down more furniture to get nails. If you're starting to notice a pattern here, it took me forever to find enough nails to build this wall. With extremely rare loot on, it makes it even harder to find the most basic items. I also did find some more base decorations to make it feel more homely. Need I say more? Day 52 was breaking down more furniture to get more nails. 53, the Project Zomboid gods blessed me with a one-of-a-kind, very rare box of freaking nails.
Nice job, team.
I was so stoked by that, and after that I had enough nails to make some serious progress on the walls back at base. Day 54, 55, 56, 57, and 58, I spent building walls around the base, going out on mini loot runs to find decorations, and mainly spent these days building up the base. Day 59, I had seen snow for the first time in this series, and for the first time in Project Zomboid ever. I had never survived long enough to see the snow, so this was a pretty cool moment for me in the series, even if it was snowing at 4 a.m. So on day 60, I went back to the abandoned warehouses that I struggled with earlier in the series. But when arriving, I noticed even more zombies from last time, so I found a little corner and decided to start slowly taking out the zombies in the area, just so I could have a somewhat safe spot to sleep for the night. After clearing out the nearby zombies, I found a plastic chair I could sleep in, and probably not my best sleep, but better than the floor, I suppose. Day 61, my game had crashed and it corrupted my recording, so on 61 I managed to find 2 boxes of nails from a nearby shipping container full of supplies. But zombies were starting to flood in, so Denise and I had to make a break for it back to the base. But essentially after that, the rest of the day was just unloading everything and organizing the base some more. On day 62, I just spent the day breaking down logs and building walls. Can you guess what I was doing on 63? If you guessed putting up more walls, you'd be correct. On day 64, I was so tired of building walls, so Denise and I went into town to kill some more zombies, and I also relooted the police station to make sure I didn't miss anything good. After that, I looted a couple more shops in Rosewood, then went back to the base for the night. At this point, I was getting close to clearing out most of the zombies in Rosewood downtown, so it would be easier to navigate in the future. Day 65, I was driving down to the Rich Hood before I spotted a fucking massive military truck, so I went to go check that out. I did unfortunately have to break the passenger window to get in, but it had the key and some gas already in it. And the storage unit in the back was freaking 600 units, so after finding that, I went straight to the Rich Hood and began grabbing all the furniture I'd want for the base. I ended up spending the whole day doing this and finding a house to stay in for the night since I had some more looting to do. Right when I woke up on day 66, I continued to loot everything and break down all the furniture to level up my carpentry and to get more nails for the base. I spent the entire day doing this and ended up just sleeping in the bar nearby. Day 67, the day started off foggy and I was still needing more nails, so I went down to the Justice Center to break down all the wood furniture there. However, when arriving, we did have to clear out a few groups of zombies and I did level up my long blunt skill. But shortly after, I began breaking things, which took most of the day, once again. But I did manage to find a couple flags I could take back to the base for decoration. After spending the day looting the Justice Center, I decided to take the risk and try and clear out the police station as well. I was feeling a bit more confident than usual, probably because I leveled up my long blunt skill. And after fighting our way inside, it was starting to get a bit out of control, and then eventually this happened. Once again, another person a part of my camp being swarmed by zombies. All I could do in the moment was escape and return back to base. I would need to return in a couple days to try and retrieve the body and any loot that may come in handy. My file was corrupted for day 68, but I just decorated the base from all the supplies I got on the previous run, and I also organized and did some inventory of my current loot. On day 69, I managed to make it back to the police station and clear it out. I also found Denise's zombie corpse and ended her misery. I managed to loot the rest of the station and looted everything off Denise's body and decided to head back to base. Day 70, I started the morning by building more walls around the base. It did take most of the morning, but I made a lot of progress and I would say the walls are almost done. These walls I've pretty much taken most of the series of building, and so I was very excited to see that the end was near. I also haven't had a chance yet to show you all the decorations and organization that have been done around the base. I ended up adding storage everywhere and have all my loot organized in places that make sense. I also made a mini living room so I could watch VHS tapes with comfort. I also was starting to gather a lot of weapons, so here soon I needed to gear up my survivors around the base. But for now I ended up making a badass lamp for the backyard. It pretty much lit up the whole area so you could see at night. I hope that doesn't attract more zombies around the base. Then for the remainder of the night, I just watched VHS tapes and leveled up my mechanics, so now I can finally hotwire vehicles. Only 70 days into this challenge. I'm so fucking bad at this game. Day 71, I spent the whole day just repairing my clothes and reinforcing it all. I did this to every piece of clothing I had so that even survivors would have reinforced patches to try and maximize our survival. Then after that, I spent the rest of the evening just watching VHS tapes and working on my skills for the night. On day 72, I wanted to head down to the school to see if I could find some more books and to break down furniture to find more nails to finish the walls. It was pretty cool to drive over all the dead bodies from previous days, just showing the progress we made through the journey. But as I was getting closer to the school, I was quickly reminded that Project Zomboid will never be an easy game. I noticed a massive fucking horde of zombies around the school, so we had to clear them out. Of course, that would be my luck. It was going so well until more and more zombies kept appearing and we began to get overran. As we were starting to run away, I wanted to separate the zombies to make it a little easier to kill the hordes. But unfortunately, then this happened. Paula was caught in the horde and I didn't have much time to think. All I could do was run away and regroup. I was determined to clear out this horde, so I risked the whole run on it and I got to work. Luckily, after some time, I was able to kill all the zombies, but it was starting to get late, and so I found a nearby house to stay in for the night so that I could continue to fight my way towards the school tomorrow. Day 73 was probably my favorite day in all of Project Zomboid. But before we get there, I had to refill my water bottles and go over my current loot before I attempted to make it to the school again. And of course, as I guessed, there was a shitload of zombies outside the school, so I did manage to kill a few and sneak my way inside, but once I got in, I seen there was even more zombies, so this simple school run was starting to turn into a big risk for the run. Shortly after clearing out all the zombies, I began looting everything I could find. I managed to find some basic medical supplies and some books in the library, which had a lot that I needed, so that was worth it. Then I heard someone else in the school and went to go check it out. This is when I met Linda, and Linda is a certified badass. She started firing her weapon quickly, and if we were going to survive this, we would need to team up, so that's exactly what we did. Linda, Ruth, and I decided to take a stand in the school, and we were going to die here or we were going to kill everything in the nearby radius. This is where my favorite moment in Project Zomboid happened. We ended up killing waves of zombies over and over before eventually there was just piles of zombies everywhere. I'm so surprised we survived this event. This was so risky. And best of all, we survived while killing everything in the nearby radius. It took the entire day clearing out the waves, so I ended up finding a school desk to sleep at for the night. On day 74, after killing all the zombies at the school, it was clear enough to start looting all the houses nearby. So that morning, I finished looting the school and taking everything back to the truck. Then I just spent the rest of the day going house to house finding food, weapons, and furniture for the base. A pretty rewarding day. 75 was a foggy day, and I didn't really want to go exploring in the fog, so I decided to clear out a spot in the school cafeteria and read Carpentry Volume 3 the entire day. Whenever you read skill books, you get an XP multiplier, and I needed to keep leveling up my carpentry to finish the base. So I just spent the whole day reading that. On day 76, the fog went away, so I went back to going door to door looting everything I could find that would be useful. And after going to a few homes, I managed to meet another survivor named Logan. The group here was starting to grow, and I was feeling more confident than ever that we were going to make it to day 100. Throughout the day, we just went house to house, clearing out the occasional zombie and finding loads of good loot to take back with us. But as I entered a house, I noticed a hostile survivor. I decided since she tried to attack me that she needed to die, but this would backfire on me. Our gunshots attracted a massive horde of zombies, but we did manage to kill the bandit. Now our problem was dealing with this horde of zombies. But like I mentioned, I was feeling very confident, maybe a little overconfident, since we were forced back to the main road and we were just shooting any zombie we could see, but it was too much. I also accidentally shot Linda in the back of the head, but I like to believe I ended her life quickly so she didn't turn into a zombie. I also got separated from the others, so I have no idea if they survived or not, but I was exhausted. I ended up having to walk back to a secure house by the school since I was too tired to even swing my axe. My confidence came crumbling down once again as I had another close call and need to be more careful in the future. Day 77, I returned to the truck to unload some things from yesterday and then began driving around to look for others since we got separated yesterday. However, after driving around for a while, I found another survivor named Irene. I asked her to join the group since having numbers is key to surviving in this game. At least for me, since I've had so many close calls during this series. We ended up clearing out some of the nearby zombies in the streets. Really, I just need an excuse to unload mags on hordes of zombies. It's just so much fun. But shortly after, someone heard our shots and approached us. His name was Jake, and he had a good loadout, so I invited him to join the group as well. So I'm also kind of a dumbass. I ended up losing where I parked the truck, so I literally spent the rest of the day just looking for it. But while I was doing that, some ex-military Grinch decided to approach us. Luckily, since we were armed to the teeth, he wasn't an issue and managed to loot him clean. Serves him right for even trying to kill us. But after that, it was just taking laps around looking for the truck. And guess what? I didn't end up finding it. So I had to stay the night in some random house. On day 78, I continued to look for the truck all morning, but eventually I did manage to find it. That was a huge relief, and then shortly after just began unloading everything and then went to all the nearby houses and broke down every piece of furniture I could find. You didn't forget that I'm still trying to find nails and have been for the last 25 days now. Day 79, I decided it was probably a good idea to head back to the base and check up on everybody. I also wanted to unload everything from the trip, but I noticed as I was getting closer to the base, there was more hordes of zombies around, probably migrating over from a different town. So I figured it would be a good idea to clear those hordes out around the base so the area would be clear again. As we were getting closer to downtown Rosewood, Katrina appeared out of nowhere. Somehow she survived from a couple days ago and managed to find her way back to town. She probably heard our gunshots, but now that the zombies were cleared again, I checked Katrina's health and she was perfectly fine, and so we went back to the base and I just unloaded everything for the rest of the night. That morning I decided to get back on the road. Day 80 was the start of a new trip we were gonna take. I always underestimate how big this map actually is. It takes forever to get around with the Sunday driver perk. If you're new to this game and want to avoid a perk at all costs, like it's the Black Plague or something, it's Sunday driver. It's so ass. But after spending the whole day driving, I found some abandoned warehouses that had absolutely no loot in it. We're off to a great start with this trip. Day 81, I made it to the outskirts of town, and my goal here is to slowly clear all the zombies as I get closer to town. And with us using guns, it should attract a lot of zombies from town, making it a bit easier to loot. So that's what we did. We got out there and we cleared wave after wave, slowly driving forward, and did it again and again. We did this for the entire day until we finally made it to the outskirts of town and found a house to stay in for the night. This was a great start to clearing out the town and getting access to all the downtown shops. On day 82, when I went outside from the house I stayed in, I found a tent and fire in the backyard. I thought the tent was pretty cool, so I took that with me. It could come in handy for one of the survivors back at the base too. But soon after I realized the scope of this mission and the amount of zombies I'd have to clear out. But I needed to get the supplies, so I spent all morning clearing out these hordes. After a while, I was able to make it to the bookstore, which had absolutely nothing good at all, so the shop was a bust. Then I went next door to the police station and killed a zombie that had full SWAT gear, so that was useful to find, but inside all I could find was a police bag, so once again, another bust. Then across the street, I found the clinic, which had a bunch of zombies kicking it out front, but you can never have too many medical supplies in the zombie apocalypse. After clearing it out, once again, another bust. There wasn't shit in any of these places. However, I did see there was a room connected to the clinic that had a bed, so I just stayed the night in the clinic and would try again in the morning. Day 83, I met a survivor named Christopher. He was sneaking around in the room next to the one I slept in for the night, but we did team up, and right after that, we met Rebecca, who also teamed up with us. Now that we had the A team, it was time to go door to door looting every shop in this town. We started with the bakery, and I found a fire extinguisher, and then next door, the grocery store, we found so much food in the back, enough to last us weeks. And then we went over to the general store, found even more food, so that was great. But now we finally made it to the shop that could have nails and very important base building supplies. But of course, there wasn't shit besides a cool outdoor light. And now that I looted everything, I loaded it all into the truck. We had another survivor approach us named Gavin. He was kitted out, so I decided to rob him of his weapon and then send him on his way. Shortly after, I figured it would be a good idea to part ways with everybody I met today. However, they had a different response than I was expecting. Rebecca turned hostile, but having my gun ready, she decided to run off. Then Christopher did the same. I didn't want to kill them, so I just slowly went to the driver's side and drove out of town. As I was leaving town, I noticed there was someone in the distance, and it was Katrina. She managed to stay alive when we got separated by the zombies a couple days ago. So in the end, it was a successful trip. We didn't lose anyone, and we managed to find all sorts of goodies to take back to the base. But unfortunately, now we had to endure the hardest part of this trip, and that's the fucking drive. It took so long to drive back to the base, but somehow we did manage to do it, and we had a successful journey overall. Day 84, now that I was back at the base, I just began unloading everything from that trip, and that took the whole day. Now granted, I also took my time setting up some decorations, but I had so much loot that it took the whole day just to organize it at the base. I was feeling pretty good once I seen all that loot I gathered from that trip. Day 85, I spent all morning clearing out weeds around the base and using bleach to clean up dirt and blood stains. I figured now that this place was secure, we could spend more time with cleaning it, so then I removed all the weeds from the front gate to make a path out to the main road. Then after that, I chopped down some wood and finished the walls on the base. This only took me the entire series, but we finally did it. The base was fully secure, and I had enough survivors around with guns that I wasn't worried about a few zombies sneaking inside the walls from the front entrance. On day 86, I spent the whole day just cooking and eating food. I did this to gain weight since I was starting to become weaker and more tired through the day due to all the weight I lost through the series. And the second reason was to level up my cooking skill even further. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not sure what leveling up your cooking skill does for you, but I was on the grind. The next day I did the same thing and had a 7-course meal and spent the day cooking even more meals and ate those too. I was starting to gain my weight back and I decided to change into some clean clothes while I was still back at the base. That night I also read a first aid book to get the XP boost on that skill. Since I tend to have a lot of close calls and all, I figured it'd be a good idea to level that one up. On day 88, I decided to do the same cooking and decided to read a novel. On day 89, I did the same routine but started to work out to work on my fitness skill. And then day 90 was also the same reading, cooking, and exercising. I basically just did this for a few days straight. On day 91, I got my first ever real blizzard in Project Zomboid. I went outside to see what it was like, but it made me instantly cold, so I just stayed indoors and kept grinding my skill levels, but I enjoyed the blizzard. From inside, it felt peaceful. On 92, it was still snowing, and I didn't have much I could do for the day, so I decided to get a couple of the survivors kitted out, and we went to go out and play in the snow. This was so cool, just wiping out hordes of zombies in the middle of the snowstorm. I would say another highlight for me in the series. But after that, I just went back to the base and stayed indoors during the snowstorm. On day 93, I stayed back at the base and went back to working out, eating and cooking a bunch, and reading books. 94, I did the same exact thing, and I've been gaining weight, which was my main concern, so overall good progress on that. On day 95, I cleared out the weeds in front of the gas pumps, and I also wanted to clear out a northern horde that was forming from the previous big trip I was on. So I got the lads together and we got to work. On day 96, I spent the day reading a scavenging book, and I also figured out you could burn zombies. So I burned the giant pile I made from all the nearby zombies. That should help with the stench of death around the base. On day 97, I got some of the gang together and we went into town to clear out the remaining zombies. So far it was going smoothly and we were just kind of taking out little pockets of zombies throughout, but a thick fog rolled in and it was making it harder to find the zombies. But as we got closer to the police station, the fog became very thick and out of nowhere there was a lot more zombies than we were expecting. Due to the fog, I got separated from everyone and I just had to focus on killing the zombies. I figured my other survivors would be fine since they were kitted out with guns. I just hoped for the best. After a while, the fog started to clear out. My survivors were nowhere to be found. It was getting late too. I ended up having to drive back to the base, but I hope they survived and we'll be able to make it back to the base in a couple days. Day 98, I went back to the police station to look for my survivors that went missing, but I could not find them anywhere. Instead, I did manage to attract a whole horde of zombies to my position, so I had to spend the whole day clearing that out. I didn't mind. Something about popping zombies' heads off in this game is so satisfying. However, a bandit heard the gunshots, and luckily I had better gear, so I was able to take him out no problem. As it was starting to get dark, I heard some other gunshots, and it was another survivor who got caught in the massive horde. I decided to help Anna, and I wiped out some of the horde with her to ensure she could escape. But now that it was dark and my survivors were nowhere to be found, I was starting to lose hope that they survived and just decided to drive back to the base for the night. Day 99, I figured I would try out scavenging since I've never used the mechanic before. I suppose I'm a little late to be trying it, but I was mainly just seeing how it worked. So I spent the whole day just wandering around a forest, picking up sticks and just random junk. But I did level up my scavenging a couple levels, so I guess that's worth it. On day 100, I gathered all the survivors I met through the series and kitted everyone out, and decided to take everyone downtown to kill the remaining zombies. It was such a cool experience to have all the people I met through the series walking in town, just killing any zombie in sight. It really felt like I've come a long ways from day one. On day 101, I figured I would go back to where it all started. I found the original house that I started day one on. It seemed like I was here in an earlier day without realizing because all the furniture was broken down, but it was cool to see how far we've come in just 100 days. This is a game where you could easily sink another 100 to 200 days and still wouldn't even be able to see everything this game has to offer. If you made it all the way to the end and enjoyed the video, please leave a like so more people can see the video and I can maybe do this full time someday. It takes me a while to edit these videos, and if you want to stay tuned for the next upload, be sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Lastly, if you want to support my channel and what I do even further, check out my Patreon in the description down below. By joining Patreon, you get access to my scripts and my thought process while recording and editing videos. You can also ask me questions that I want to make videos on eventually, and you can also get your name shown at the end of every video. Then lastly, you can also vote on what games I should play next. I hope you enjoyed the video and I will see you on the next one. This has been 100 Days in Project Zomboid.